The 400 Thunder Pro Alcohol Championship began in Darwin, but it came to life in Sydney. Several championship contenders started to make a name for themselves. John Connolly, the young gun, Steve Reed, the emotional fan favourite, and of course, the 18-time national champion driving for Lucas Oil's Gary Phillips. It is a very busy cockpit in these funny cars. Oh, very close to the wall for John Connolly. It was a great side-by-side race. Wayne Price gets it. He is going to the final here in Sydney. Oh, and Steve Reed gets it. He makes it through to the final. Pete Zello strapped a whole shot on him, had half a tenth of a second up his sleeve, but could not convert it to the win. And Steve Reed, he is as determined as I have ever seen him this weekend. Final round saw a mouth-watering matchup with Steve Reed racing with a heavy heart for his mum. And of course, in the far side of the racetrack, we had Wayne Price, who was looking for his first ever championship event win. It is all Steve Reed. All Steve Reed. A slowing 6:02 for him. Takes out a 6:46 for Wayne Price. Not the type of times that we've seen throughout the weekend, but really it doesn't matter. This is an emotional win for the Reed family. There's a lot of tears, there's a lot of hugs going around, but let's have a look at the replay of the run. Wayne Price, he got the whole shot 0.99 on the tree. He had around about 0.04 of a second up his sleeve, but really it didn't matter. There was no stopping Steve Reed this weekend. There was no way he was going to be second to the finish line here. He pedalled that car. You can see the shot from behind. He actually had to do a lot of driving with that car. It got way out of the groove. As we go on board, you'll see the car start to move way over near the wall. Now, in a funny car, that's very, very hard to correct. It is just the experience of Steve Reed that really put the exclamation point on that win. John Connolly took the early season lead in the Pro Alcohol points after Sydney, but Steve Reed was breathing down his neck, only 4 points behind. Scott McLean, the Northern Territorian, found a spot in the top 3, and Gary Phillips, trying to hunt down his 19th national championship, rounded out the top 4. When the series headed west to the Perth Motorplex at the beautiful Kwinana Beach, we had all our championship contenders in attendance, as well as one of the local hitters in the form of Craig Glasby. Although not contending for the championship this season, he was certainly looking to put the cat amongst the pigeons with a car that can run with the absolute best of them in the Pro Alcohol class. Little blip of the throttle, phantom rev for Connolly. The psych out begins. Oh no! That is the last thing I would have expected to see from Craig Glasby. He red lights. I think he may have even rolled the beams because it looked like the top stage light went out just before the red light came on. Craig Glasby rolls the beams and a .209 red light. Gary Phillips has not been great on the Christmas tree all weekend long. He's been very, very tardy on his reaction times. Aaron Deary has been quick because he had to be quick. Clean greens on both sides of the track. Deary's out in front, but he bangs the supercharger, and Gary Phillips gets around him in the deep. I love the psych out on the start line from these alcohol cars. They bring the revs up, a couple of phantom revs. Connolly's in, we're set for a start. And Phillips just gaps him there. 5:44, puts the exclamation point on it. Debbie gives her son Shane a hug, and the Lucas Oil team will be celebrating tonight. It's been a great weekend for them. Number 1 qualifier with that 5:42. They take home the win. What a way to do it. And John Connolly, he gave it a valiant effort at 5:63. He was second off the starting line though, which I think That's the first time that's happened all weekend. Gary Phillips, 0.59 on the tree. He shook the tyres ever so slightly at the top of first gear, but by that point he was already out in front of Connolly. You can see the pipes go a little bit wet for Connolly, may have been dropping a cylinder or two, and Gary Phillips just stretches it out, takes the win, and with that, I will say, moves a long way up the championship points ladder. Big hugs all round, great sportsmanship, but Gary Phillips, what a racer.
Yeah, it was consistent. You know, I got to say that myself. That the 55 in the semi-finals was the only, you know, bad run all weekend, really, and you know, that was still a good run. So the car just looks like $1 million. You know, the engine is coming out just great.
With that win, Gary Phillips vaulted his way up to third in the championship standings, but John Connolly distanced himself with that runner-up trophy. 262 points was the championship lead. Now it's Steve Reed in behind him, and Gary Phillips, as I said, rounding out the top three. We stayed in Perth for the next round of the championship, and again it was a barn burner. The championship heavyweights battling it out all the way through to the semi-final round, where we saw some sensational racing and some epic performances from all involved. John Connolly fighting for a championship. Aaron Deary looking to impress in front of his home crowd. Or problems for Connolly. He shook the tyres a little bit. I thought the dragster was going to go around him, but he saves it. A 5.55. It's not as quick as his earlier 5.47 in the first round of racing, but still 5.55 gets the win. Semi-final number 2 saw Gary Phillips, the wily veteran, take on Robert Ambrosi, looking to make his first ever 400 Thunder final. But Rob Ambrosi, been racing Top Alcohol on and off now for probably 15 years. He's come back with a vengeance though, and he's really spent the money where he needs to spend it. He's brought on James Rowland as well as a tuning consultant for this team, and it's really starting to pay dividends. This car has not been out of the 550s all weekend long, and that is a credit to that team. Very clean off the start line on both sides of the racetrack, but the big horsepower of the Lucas Oil car really brings it home strong, and Gary Phillips will move on to the final round. 5.46 for him. The final round saw the two championship contenders going head-to-head. By the end of the season, it was sure to be a battle royale between these two, John Connolly and Gary Phillips. Waiting for the cars to come into stage, probably the most tense moment of any drag race as they bring the revs up. The RPMs, they'll come up to 5,500 to 6,000 RPMs in these engines. One flash of the tree and you're Ash. And Ash it is for Gary Phillips. Smokes the tyres. I did not expect that early on in the run. And man, oh man, John Connolly takes it a 5.47. There's a lot to be said for just getting down the racetrack, and John Connolly takes it 5.47. Smiles all round for Kirsten Connolly. Even Debbie Phillips is in there. It's been a great weekend for those guys. You've got to remember, 5.30s, first car in Australia that's ever gone under 5.4 seconds for the quarter mile. And Gary Phillips, congratulations to them. It's been a great weekend, but the trophy will be going home in the Crossroads Motorsport Transporter. John Connolly, fantastic for him, fantastic for the championship, and it is really going to heat things up as we head on down the road in this 400 Thunder Championship. On board with John Connolly, you look out the side window, you never saw Gary Phillips in that Lucas Oil car. That's because he smoked the tyres, overpowered the racetrack, and John Connolly just gets it on down there and takes the win.
Yeah, well, you know, the guys worked so hard all weekend. The car was fast all weekend. They've done a great job, and mate, to come out with the win, we're wrapped. So we're going to head to Easter now and stand 03, and hopefully we can keep the winning streak going.
John Connolly maintained his number 1 position in the points, but he has got a new number 2 breathing down his neck. Gary Phillips, the 18-time national champ, was on a charge mid-season, and he is looking to take that number 1 off John Connolly. The next round of the series saw us head to beautiful sunny southeast Queensland and the Santos Super 3 Extreme Drag Race at Willowbank. Everybody at this race meeting was shooting for the sky. John Connolly, though, a little too literally. Oh no! John Connolly sends it skywards. That is a massive, massive wheel stand. And that could very well have championship implications for John Connolly.
It come up, it just picked up the wheel like it normally does. It just kept going higher and higher and higher. Next I could see the sun, so.
With the pro alcohol class running the 3-round format this weekend, there was an A and a B final, with Gary Phillips surprisingly struggling in front of his home crowd. Clean greens both sides of the racetrack, and Brosey strapped a whole shot on Gary Phillips, but Phillips takes it at the other end, and that is low ET of the evening. 5.46 seconds, quickest run we've seen so far. After a tough couple of rounds, Steve Reed and the All-Star Batteries car found themselves in the A final in front of their hometown crowd, taking on the lone dragster in the field, Peter Zello. Steve Reed, he's got plenty of Christmas trees, but he always wants one more. This is his home track. He loves to put on a show in front of his home crowd, his family. Everyone's here at the racetrack. This is going to be a good one. Clean greens both sides of the racetrack. The chute comes out early for Steve Reed. I don't know who got there. That was a close race. It's Peter Zello. Takes home his first win in pro alcohol under the 400 Thunder banner. I tell you what, you talk about stealing it at the death. Steve Reed was out in front. It looked to me like the big horsepower of the funny car was going to bring it home, but for whatever reason, the chute comes out early. He was still on the throttle at that point, and Peter Zello takes it by a nose. Sensational race.
Oh, Peter, this is a lesson in perseverance, isn't it?
Oh, very much so, yes. Been racing a while, but today was just one of those days where everything sort of went right for us, that's for sure. So, we weren't the fastest car, but we got the win.
So John Connolly maintained his series lead, but only just. Gary Phillips narrowed the gap to 28 points. Steve Reed in third, Rob Ambrosi in fourth, Aaron Deary, Scott McLean, Peter Zello, and Wayne Price rounding out your 8. So your championship contenders are John Connolly, Gary Phillips, and Steve Reed, heading into the penultimate round of the series at Sydney Dragway. It was the Nitro Champs, and Gary Phillips found himself in the semi-final with what was expected to be a very tough run against Wayne Price, but unfortunately for Price, he had problems in the burnout, had to be pushed back away from the start line, and that gave Gary Phillips a free pass through to the final. Now he's done the burnout procedure, which means he is going to launch the car here. He wants to put on a show for this crowd in Sydney. What kind of a number can he throw up? Well, he shakes the tyres very, very hard off the start line. He knows he's on a solo pass, so he rolls out of the throttle. Oh, problems. Oh, into the wall for Steve Reed and into the wall for Rob Ambrosi. Wow. That is one of the most bizarre drag races I have seen for a long, long time. Ambrosi's still got his hands full in the braking area. The car bucking and weaving like a Bronco at the Easter show. But Steve Reed, oh, that is considerable damage on the side of that funny car, you can see. So with the early exit of John Connolly, Gary Phillips was poised to take over the #1 spot in the pro alcohol ranks for the first time this season. Oh, Ambrosi skating all over the track. He's over near that concrete wall again. You don't want to be there. Gary Phillips takes the win, but a 5.407 at a booming 426 kilometres per hour. That's a big run from Gary Phillips. Almost matches to the 1,000th of a second his best run of the weekend so far, and that has been a dominating performance from the Lucas Oil team all weekend long. He's the #1 qualifier by over 0.2 of a second, and he takes a convincing victory here in the final of the 2016 Nitro Champs. Having a look at Rob Ambrosi, it wasn't too many problems for him, but it looked like the car just got a little bit out of the groove as it got towards the top end of the racetrack, over near that concrete wall. And Rob says, you know what, I've already eaten concrete once tonight. I don't need to do it twice and make more work for the crew. And he gets the chutes out, gets that car stopped. But to the Lucas Oil team, to Debbie, Gary and Shane Phillips, congratulations. It's been a big effort from those guys this weekend to run 2 cars, and they've got their just rewards here in the final of Pro Alcohol. So Gary Phillips took advantage of a troubled weekend for John Connolly to take a massive swing in the points. He takes the points lead and has it by 49 heading into the final round of the series and what is headed to be an epic conclusion to the inaugural 400 Thunder Pro Alcohol Championship. What a beautiful venue this is, bathed in South Queensland sunshine. It is the Winternationals here at Willowbank Raceway. We are set for pro alcohol qualifying. We've already had one qualifying session in the books, and let me tell you, it was a world record setter. John Connolly with that 5:35 with an 8. That is the quickest funny car run by an alcohol-fueled funny car in the world that we've ever seen. It's a sensational effort to have that record here in Australia, and it's a huge congratulations to the John Connolly team. But before we go too much further, we need to look at pro alcohol qualifying session number 2. We've got some big fields here this weekend. 11 cars have tried to get down the track so far. It is an 8-car field, so there's going to be a bunch of guys that miss out on racing come Sunday afternoon. First pair up, that's Chris Hargrave on the far side of the racetrack. He's taking on championship contender Steve Reed. Very clean on both sides of the racetrack, and Hargrave, a 5:51, 255 miles per hour, 411 kilometres per hour. That's a great run. Steve Reed, he corrects his position in that qualifying list with that 5:57, gets him a lot further up. It actually carried the front wheels a long way up by the look of it for Steve Reed. It was a big hole shot to Chris Hargrave, but it is only qualifying, so reaction times do not matter. But man, oh man, Chris Hargrave, that's got to be a personal best for that team. Congratulations to the East Coast Mustang and Camaro sales car.
Oh yeah, we're sitting in third in the championship at the moment. Mathematical chance of winning the championship. Highly unlikely, but mathematical chance. So it's basically just come out here, let's do the best we can for our team and our sponsors and stuff like that. And home track and in front of this huge crowd that the Winternationals always draws, and just living the dream.
Second matchup in this second round of qualifying, it is Wayne Price in that absolutely gorgeous Speed City Dodge Charger. He's taking on one of the lone dragsters in this field. That's Peter Zello. He's a winner from earlier on in the series. If you remember, I think it was the Easter event that we had here at Willowbank Raceway. So he's a guy who knows how to take home the W, and Wayne Price is not exactly a nuffy either. That guy can run some very quick times in that funny car. Well, both cars coming very close to the centre line at the top end of the racetrack. Pro Alcohol turning it on in qualifying here. Pete Zello goes a 5:59. Wayne Price alongside him a 5:62. But the big speed from the funny car, 413 kilometres per hour. That's where the big top end charge of the aerodynamic funny car comes to the front. And you can see there in the big speed differential, not even over 400 kilometres per hour for the dragster, but well over 410 for the funny car. You can see both cars got way out of the groove. It was almost like they had magnets inside them being drawn together at half track there, but both drivers did a good job to get it back in their own lane and through for a solid run.
Yeah, the track's been really tight, so coming from Sydney a month or so ago, we've cured all our tyre shake and we've put a lot more power into it, and it seemed to work. We got rid of the tyre shake.
Next matchup, it is Gary Phillips in the Lucas Oil Products car who is battling it out for this championship. Now, you've got to remember, he's still in with a very good shot. He's got a slight lead over John Connolly in this championship, and what he needs to do essentially is go to the semi-finals. If he wins the semi-final matchup, that's the championship done. No matter what John Connolly does, that will be Gary Phillips' championship number 19. Looking across in the other lane, that's Luke Marsden, first ever start in Pro Alcohol here this weekend. He's a multi-time national champion in Supercharged Outlaws though, so he is a guy who knows how to get down the racetrack, but you step up to Pro Alcohol and it is a completely different game. very nice run there. Very nice run for Gary Phillips, a 5.406. Thank you very much. Slots right in behind John Connolly in that qualifying list. 432 kilometres per hour. That is a massive speed from the Lucas Oil racer. Looking at Luke Marsden as well, a 5.70. That's a personal best for that team. Great run, but just not quite enough to make the cut at this point in time. But Gary Phillips, man oh man, they've got that car on a string, and they need to. They know that John Connolly has got a very hot setup in that car this weekend. They know they need to keep pace with him. If they do that, they'll take home the championship, and that is what Gary Phillips is hunting.
You know, the number one only counts at the end of the event, mate. You know, so 40. It was actually a little bit scary because the throttle stuck open, so it was going pretty fast when I finally got it shut off. But it's hung open for a second was on. Yeah, so it wasn't pretty, but no, it looks all right. The car looks good. Apart from that, it was fast. I think it went 216 or something like that to half track, which was right where we need to be. Just missing just a little bit on the ET, but hey, a 40 we'll take it. We just had to make sure we got down there, you know. Well, it ran 268 or 9 or something, you know, like it was a pretty good run. And then, it's going that fast, it covers the territory really quick. So lucky the chutes were out and it was, you know, no harm, no foul, I guess.
And the hitters just keep on coming in this pro alcohol category. That's Mark Davidson in the signhut.com.au altered. Fantastic looking car. They're just a mean, nasty, wicked looking thing, aren't they, altereds? And Rob Ambrosi, who is coming to the final event of his season here, and it has been a career best year for him. He has done sensationally with that car, has been making final rounds, has been going rounds, accumulating points, and he's in the top 5 in the championship at the moment. So he is doing sensationally for a guy who hasn't run the full series before. So congratulations to that team. Whatever happens here at the Winternationals, it will just be the cherry on top of the cake for him. Oh, it's ugly for Mark Davison. Cylinders out on the left-hand side of the engine as you look at it. That's never going to make horsepower. Rob Ambrosi, though, a 5.70, 405 kilometres per hour. It's a solid run. He's in the field, courtesy of that 5.65 that we saw from him last night. So that 5.70, that's a good consolidation for him. He's solidly in this qualified field, and that's the first step this weekend. You've got to remember, with 11 cars here, only 8 will make race day. And what that means is that there are some very, very competitive cars that are going to miss out come Sunday afternoon. Fortunately for Rob Ambrosi, it looks like he is going to be one of the cars that will start come Sunday afternoon, so that's great news for him. Next car up, it is Steve Ham, a name that is fantastic to have back in the series. Former Australian champion in this class. He's been away for probably around 12 or 18 months doing some racing in the United States of America, but he's actually brought that car back from the US. He's here racing here this weekend, and he's got a big, big job ahead of him right here. I know qualifying doesn't matter who's in the other lane, but if you look across there, that's the Crossroads racing car. That is the quickest alcohol funny car in the world right there. John Connolly, current #1 qualifier. Oh, it's ugly on both sides of the racetrack. Looks like the burst panels come off the body for John Connolly. Steve Ham, a 5.80. That's not really where he wants to be. He wants to be down in those 50s and the 40s up there with Connolly and Gary Phillips. But I think Connolly might have a little bit of a fire on board here, because the burst panel has come off the body. He's jumping out of the car, and that's exactly what's happened. He's going around the front of the car to pull the body up and hopefully save some of that damage on that race car. I think he might have just shut some of the controls off in there, but he definitely is calling for the fire extinguishers. That is not a good thing for the Crossroads racing team. Let's have a look at it and see if we can figure out what happened here. Keep your eye on it. Oh yeah, big explosion. Backfired the supercharger off it. You can actually see some shrapnel coming off that car as well. Keep your eye on the car on the right-hand side. The relief panel comes off the body. The reason that comes flying out is because it's designed to take the pressure away from underneath the body, save major damage being done, but still a lot of work for that team to be done between rounds.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm starting to get used to these things now. We just, it left the line, it left nice, it quivered a little bit, it was going down the track, and then all of a sudden there was a big bang in the car, and next minute there was fire, you know, so that's it. So boys will try to get this turned around now and get it ready for the next round. I just thought, not again, mate. This is just getting, just the reoccurrence of this situation's just happening too many times now. Like this racetrack, we just keep getting bittersweet, at this racetrack, and hopefully we can turn it around tomorrow.
Qualifying session 3 for Pro Alcohol under the lights here at Willowbank Raceway. It is the City of Ipswich Winternationals, and look at that crowd, massive crowd in the house to take in all the action from qualifying session number 3. That's Pete Zello on the far side of the racetrack. He's already qualified in this field, as is Steve Reed on the near side. Now it's just a matter of shuffling the order to see where they end up. Or way over near the wall for Steve Reed. Keeps the boot into it and runs it across the line for a beautiful run, a 5.50. That will move him up at least one spot in this qualifying list, but it is a quick field coming into this session. We already have the quickest bump spot we have ever seen in this country, so this is a fast field, let me tell you.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with that. I mean, we've stepped it up each run, so we're heading in the right direction. Driver made a couple of little mistakes on that run there, so it could have been a little bit better again, but whatever, woulda, shoulda, coulda, they all happens every run. But so yeah, no, we're pretty happy with that. Number 3 qualifier, I think, so that's all good.
And we spoke about the bump spot just a little bit earlier. Well, the man sitting in the hot seat at the moment is Rob Ambrosi. He is number 8 qualifier at the moment. One man who is outside this field who can potentially bump him out is Mark Davidson. He's over in the other lane, and we've also still got Steve Ham left to come. So it's going to be an interesting final couple of runs in qualifying here at the City of Ipswich Winternationals for Pro Alcohol. Mark Davison, I think he'll just be happy to get down the racetrack here. He would be glad to see a 5-second time slip come up on the boards, and if he can do that, theoretically, he's in with a shot to bump out Ambrosi. The number at the moment is a 5.65, and I'll tell you right now, Ambrosi is not going to beat that on this run, and Davison is not either. Ambrosi is safe for one more run. He is the number 8 qualifier. Unfortunately for Mark Davison, that is his weekend done. 7.58 does not make the field. But Ambrosi, he threw a bunch at this racetrack. He knew that he needed to move up the qualifying list. He threw a whole bunch of horsepower at it, and it just smoked the tyres right at the hit of the throttle. 6.60 doesn't improve his standing in the qualifying list, and he has to bite his nails for one more run.
What's actually happened is that we're struggling a bit now because we've fixed our electrical problems and the car's making a lot of power. So what's happening is just started blowing the tyres off it. So we're trying really hard. That last qualifying run now, it actually smoked the tyres. When it did that, I just had a sheer, I just want to get down the track. I pedalled it, it hooked up and took off. But we did some engine damage there, mainly because what happens when the RPM goes up so quick, right, the clutch starts to try to bite and it rips the rear main out of it. So we don't know how much damage we've done, but we're going to have to change engines tonight, put another motor in it and race tomorrow. We're lucky to be in the field. I've tried my hardest all weekend and we have had a hard weekend, I'll tell you. So we'll try our hardest, we'll see what happens. We'll change engines over and tomorrow's going to be a new day.
So now it comes down to this man and what this man can lay down. Steve Ham. Now remember, at one point in this country, he was the national record holder. He had the quickest alcohol funny car that we've ever seen in this country. So Steve Ham is certainly a guy who can lay down a number, and he is going to need to here. Remember, Robert Ambrosi is sitting on the bump spot with that 5.65. If Steve Ham goes quicker than 5.65, Ambrosi will be out on race day, and that would be a bitter way to end what has been a career best season for Rob Ambrosi. Now, on the far side of the racetrack, that's Wayne Price. He's already comfortably in this field. So Steve Ham, all eyes on the red funny car here, closest to camera. If he can run a 5.65 or better, he will make this field. And it's not going to happen. Up in tyre smoke, they threw a bunch at this racetrack and it did not stick, unfortunately. So he will be out on race day. Wayne Price, on the other hand, a 5.64. That is a solid consolidation run for him. He was already in with a 50 and that run was straight down the middle of the racetrack. But for Steve Ham, that was shake, rattle and roll. They threw a whole bunch at it. He pedalled it once, twice, tried to get it to hook up to the racetrack, but it was never going to happen, and he knew by that point it was over.
Yeah, it was really good. We qualified yesterday with a 5.58, which was okay. All our 3 passes we got down, so yeah, it's a good result. You know, we didn't qualify number 1, but that's okay.
No, but the man who did qualify number 1 is John Connolly with that 5:35. Plenty of work to do before race day for him. Gary Phillips in number 2, our 2 championship contenders, 1 and 2 in the qualifying list. That means that they can only race in the final round. We are set for a big eliminations. If qualifying was anything to go by, eliminations are going to be one for the ages here at Willowbank Raceway. We are set for the final round of the Pro Alcohol Championship, and we're here at Willowbank Raceway. It is the City of Ipswich Winternationals. These are our first round matchups. Chris Hargrave will take on John Sting. Wayne Price and Steve Reid to do battle. Peter Sello and Gary Phillips in a monster matchup. And Robert Ambrosi with the biggest task of anybody in this first round of racing, taking on the world's fastest alcohol funny car in the form of John Connolly. But before we get to that, we need to look at this matchup. John Sting, a man who we haven't seen much of this weekend. That's because he ran in the one and only qualifying session, got into the field on Friday night, but wounded that car pretty seriously. They needed to work all day on Saturday to get it back for this first round of racing. Fortunately, they didn't get bumped out of the field, and he is set for a start here on race day. Chris Hargrave, he's been racing pretty consistently this season up and down the east coast of Australia, and he has been doing some great things in this absolutely gorgeous Mustang funny car, the East Coast Mustang and Camaro Parts Mustang, which was a surprise number 3 qualifier in this Winternationals field. I say that with all due respect to Chris Hargrave, but when you've got names like Phillips and Connolly at the top of the tree, you don't expect a rookie to be in right behind them. This is a huge crowd we've got in the house here at Willowbank. We are set for racing. Big hole shot to the dragster, and the dragster is going to stretch it on out and take the win. An 0.55 reaction time, 5.56 at the other end of the racetrack. Big speed as well for a dragster, 408 kilometres per hour. Chris Hargrave, unfortunately, he was a little bit tardy on the start line, 0.210 for reaction times, and the elapsed time still, well, it was almost 0.3 of a second off what we saw in qualifying from him. So he was never going to be in with a shot if John Sting ran to his potential. But John Sting, after a troubled weekend, is making it count here in Queensland.
Yeah, no, it's a great result for us. We had a pretty tough run in qualifying. We tore up a lot of stuff in Q1, and so yeah, missed the second and third one, so we're back out here. So no, we're very happy. The team's worked their bums off, and it's all good.
Wayne Price in the Dodge Charger, another very, very tough competitor. There are no easy rounds whatsoever in this pro alcohol field, and that's Stephen Reid. The car looking absolutely resplendent on one side, but I can tell you right now that on the left-hand side of the car, it is still wearing those battle scars from its little incident with the wall in Sydney. Being a very, very short turnaround between those events, they've had to basically just throw the repairs together on the car just so that they could get here for the Winternationals. This is one of their favourite events of the year. It's in front of their home crowd, and what a crowd it is here at Willowbank. And well, Wayne Price had a solid qualifying performance, but Steve Reid, he has been absolutely sensational this season. Up and down a little bit in the middle part of the season, particularly when we went west over to WA. They had a tough time over there, burned up a bunch of parts, but they seem to have got the handle back on this tune-up. Went 5.50 in qualifying. It's a very competitive performance, and that's right where they need to be. It's not necessarily about running world-beating times for that team, but it is about consistency, and if they can run consistently, they can put some round wins on the board here today. Oh, and how's that for the commentator's curse? Right up in tyre smoke for Steve Reid. Wayne Price got a little bit close to the wall at around about half track, but a 5.53, that is a good run for him. 0.59 on the tree as well. Very good reaction time combined with a very competitive time. He is going to be a tough one to watch in the semi-finals. You can see he even had to pedal the car ever so slightly. It just unsettled a little bit just off the start line. He pedaled it once, got it to hook back up. The car started walking around a little bit in the middle of the run, but he reined it back in, kept it off the wall, and he will move on to the semi-finals here. That is a tough way to end the season, though, for the Steve Reed team and the All-Star Batteries team, because they have been just great all season long, and I'm sure we will see them back for Season 2 of 400 Thunder. Next matchup, Peter Zello, who has been great this weekend. He is an event winner, something he couldn't say at the start of this season. Gary Phillips, on the other hand, we can say that he's won plenty of events in a career spanning almost 40 years in this country. He has won 18 national titles, and he is hunting his 19th here today. 18 in this category alone. He's got one as well in the Pro Slammer class. A very, very talented racer and a future Hall of Famer in this country, I'll tell you right now. The Lucas Oil Products car needs to go to the semi-finals. If he wins the semi-final, he will win the championship. After that, it does not matter what John Connolly does. He will win the championship. So that is all Gary Phillips is focused on. He has done this so many times over the years. He has won so many championships. He's won so many races. He knows exactly what he needs to focus on, and that is his lane. He doesn't care what Pete Zello does, but I'll tell you what, Pete Zello wants to spoil the party here in Queensland, and he's going to give it a shot. Very, very close at half track, but the funny car, the big speed, comes on strong at the top end of the racetrack, and that's a big run. 5:41 for Gary Phillips, struggling to pull it up a little bit at the top end of the racetrack, but a 5:41 at a big speed as well. Peter Zello was, well, there was nothing wrong with that run of 5:52 at over 250 miles per hour in the old speak for the dragster. That's a big run for him, but unfortunately, right there, the car just dropped the cylinder for the slightest of margins. It was only for a couple of hundredths of a second, and that was all it took for Gary Phillips to get on through to the semi-final round. On board with Gary, plugging the gears, gets the chutes out. You could never see the dragster, but I can tell you, he was there the whole way through.
This top alcohol this weekend was fantastic. I mean, record bump spot, really, really close races. And, you know, everyone that qualified for this field should be really proud of themselves because, you know, it was tough getting in.
The final matchup of this first round of racing, and it is Rob Ambrosi in this absolutely fantastic looking Monte Carlo funny car taking on John Connolly in the world's quickest alcohol funny car. That's right, that first run that we saw from him this weekend, that 5:36 sensational run. And it was one that was heard all around the world, I can tell you right now. But you've got to remember, Connolly is trying to get this championship. He doesn't need to know what Gary Phillips is doing. He would have known already that Gary Phillips has got the first round win, but he needs to win to keep pace with him, and he really needs Gary Phillips to lose in the semi-final and John Connolly to go through and win this event. Then he may just be able to take over the points, but that's a big if at this point in time because Gary Phillips came into this event with a commanding lead in the points. That being said, John Connolly can lay down a number here. The track is very, very good. They're concentrating on getting this thing from point A to point B and doing it in quick time because they need to take low ET points as well as the event win for any hope of the championship. A red light for Rob Ambrosi, and John Connolly will move on to the semi-finals, and he does it in style with a 5:36. 5:36 at over 255 miles per hour. That's 410 kilometers per hour. But man, that is a shot across the bow of Gary Phillips right there. 5:36. He is not going to die wondering this weekend, that's for sure. Throwing everything that this car, this team have at this racetrack, and it is sticking at the moment. Commiserations to Rob Ambrosi, 006 red, 6,000ths of a second from perfect, but still it smoked the tyres anyway. He was probably never going to win that race, but man, John Connolly, he is on it this weekend. And that is about the straightest run you will ever see in a funny car. Pulls the chutes, gets on the brakes, pulls the thing up at the top end of the racetrack, and he'd be pretty excited inside that car. And you've got exactly the opposite emotion inside that car for Rob Ambrosi. Nothing but despair for him.
I've never won one. This is, for us, for me, this track has always been something. We've always had some problem. But hopefully tonight we can get the win.
So after your first round of racing, these are the guys who won their first rounds. John Sting beat Chris Hargrave, Wayne Price beat Stephen Reed, Gary Phillips defeated Peter Zello, and John Connolly with that 5:36, another 5:30 sensational run, took out the win over Robert Ambrosi. Sensational conditions for racing here. The track is in absolute A1 condition. The crowd is huge, the races are on, and we are set for some epic semi-finals. This has been the race of the year for mine. Wayne Price taking on Gary Phillips in the first of our semi-finals, and John Sting in the dragster taking on John Connolly. Man, he's going to need to bring everything to that one. The kitchen sink, the kitchen bench, the whole kitchen appliance. He's going to need to bring everything to take on John Connolly in that second semi-final. Gary Phillips lines up for what could be another championship-defining moment here. If he wins this race, this single race, he will wrap up the very first 400 Thunder Championship for Pro Alcohol and his 19th national title. That is just a sensational effort that I'm not sure will ever be matched in this country by any form of motorsport, but he needs to get around the man in the other lane, and the man in the other lane at the moment is Wayne Price, who has been sensational this weekend, laying down some very quick times. He ran 5:53 in the first round of racing. He probably can't quite run those 30s that we've seen from Gary Phillips and John Connolly over the course of the season. But if Gary Phillips sneezes, if he oversteps the mark, if he's late on the tree, Wayne Price will be right there to snatch that win away and potentially snatch that championship away. There is a lot to play for here in Queensland under darkening skies. The wind is starting to pick up a little bit, just matching the atmosphere. There is so much to play for here in Queensland. You can feel the tension starting to rise. The crowd are on the edge of their seats. The crew have got absolutely no fingernails left. It's all on the drivers. It's Phillips, and he takes the championship. Once again, he takes the championship with the first ever run that we've seen from an alcohol car in this country, over 270 miles per hour. 435.21 kilometres per hour. That is a big, big speed, and that's a big, big win there for Gary Phillips. Championship number 19. Congratulations to that team. But I tell you what, Wayne Price, don't hold your head. He threw everything that he had at that racetrack. It shook the tyres a little bit, smoked them, still went 5.97, but it was never going to beat a 5.36. And I tell you what, that's 5.36 that we've seen from both Gary Phillips and John Connolly. If those guys match up in the final round, it is going to be a great race. And you think the crew are a little bit excited. I tell you what, Gary Phillips is going to be excited.
You know, we've been trying to run that 270 for a long time. Well, for a fair while anyhow, and it, it was there, and we thought, oh, we'll try and get that, for the points and the whole thing, and to run the 36 with a one, I guess, because right now we still got the record at 360 until the event's finished, and if we don't hold it, well, it won't be from lack of trying. But it was great for the championship for Lucas Oil Products, and they've been with me for so long, and I'll have to change the number, I think, 19, I guess it is now, so yeah, it was great.
So the championship is wrapped up, but there is so much more to play for. John Sting in the dragster. He doesn't race at every round of the championship, but when he does, man, that is a competitive car, and he's taking on John Connolly, who has had a pretty good weekend, let's be honest. He may have lost the championship at this point, but he takes home the #1 qualifier. He takes home, at the moment, what is low ET of the world, literally. That is the quickest car in the world, and you can't really complain too much about that. But John Connolly, it's been an up and down season for him. For most of the season, he actually held the championship lead, and it looked like he was going to take home his first championship, but it was not meant to be this season. But I'm sure he's going to come out swinging in season 2017, that is for sure. John Sting, on the other hand, he's flying the flag for the dragsters. A lot of people think that they're a dying breed, but they seem to be making a resurgence. We've already seen one take home an event win this season at the Easter event. That was Peter Zello, and this time around, John Sting finds himself in the semi-final round, potentially with a berth through to the final to take on Gary Phillips. So, you know, the potential is certainly there for the dragsters. I think it's just a matter of exploiting the potential, looking at the rules, and really taking those rules and using them to your advantage. Both cars coming into stage now. Pre-stage beams are lit. You'll hear these cars bring the RPMs up to about 5,500 RPMs. They'll bump into stage and then we're set for a start. A little bit of a bobble at half track for Connolly, but it's another 30. It's a 5:37 for John Connolly at 431 kilometers per hour. Man, oh man. This has just been punch for punch, blow for blow between Gary Phillips and John Connolly all weekend long, and it is going to culminate in this final round. Sensational. This is the way it's meant to be. 1 and 2 in the championship, 1 and 2 in the qualifying list, and they are set to duke it out in the final round. Gary Phillips will have lane choice, though, courtesy of that 5:36. John Connolly only a hair behind him with that 5:37. John Sting, it was a good run from him, but just nowhere near enough to take down Connolly.
Oh yeah, of course it was. Some really good numbers got laid down there in the semi-finals. So it's going to be a really good matchup in the final.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, there's luck involved, but when it's on, you know, sheer performances, and, you know, to lose or to win lane choice by 100th and a 5:36 and a 5:37 in the semi-finals is, you know, we were trying, absolutely. So that, yeah, the finals should be great. It's getting really cold now, and yeah, we'll just have to rethink the way we approach it, but we'll be trying.
Yeah, he's not a multi-time Australian champion for no reason at all. He's a really good competitive racer, and he knows how to win as well.
This rivalry has been building all season long. These guys have been duking it out for the championship, and although that is run and done, we are far from done here at the Winternationals. This is the final round of Pro Alcohol, and we are set for one that is going to go down in the record books. I'm telling you right now, it is going to be sensational. We had two of the quickest runs we have ever seen from Pro Alcohol in this country in the semi-final runs. We saw John Connolly go 5:37. We saw Gary Phillips go 5:36 at over 270 miles per hour. They have been going blow for blow for blow all season long, and it has come down to this. John Connolly, he does not have the championship. He can't win the championship from here, but he can certainly take home the trophy from the Winternationals, which is one of the most coveted trophies of the entire season. Just about all eyeballs in the drag racing world, and even some from outside the drag racing world, are focused on Willowbank Raceway and this 400-metre drag strip right now, because this is what it all comes down to. Man on man, machine versus machine, driver versus driver. The veteran, the champion, up against the quickest alcohol funny car in the world in the form of John Connolly. There are so many little battles to keep an eye on here, and we are set for a start under the lights here at Willowbank Raceway, the last round of the championship for the 400 Thunder Series. Connolly over near the centre line, big move! Oh no, they come together at half track. That is a big, big accident for John Connolly. Nobody expected this. Gary Phillips looks like he's pulled that car up A-OK, but John Connolly, the whole back half of the body is missing from that car, and I hope he's okay inside there, because it looks like a tyre may have let go. Those two cars certainly came together at half track. The good news is John Connolly's getting out the top of that car, and it looks like he is A-OK, but there is devastation at the back of that car. Nobody expected this. Let's have a look at it and analyse what happened. John Connolly, looks like the car just washed out of the groove ever so slightly, got over near the centre line, but I can tell you now there was no way he was getting off the throttle. The car made a big move, and right there, you can actually see John Connolly's tyre comes into contact with Gary Phillips' header pipes, the exhaust pipes on that engine, and they do have a sharp edge on them, and when you're running those kind of speeds, any kind of little debris is going to puncture that tyre, and when you've got such a big moving mass, when that lets go, all that energy has to go somewhere, and in this case, it went straight through the body on John Connolly's car. You can see it just absolutely shreds the back of it, There is no saving that body. And actually, looking at Gary Phillips, he gets over into the wall as well, trying to avoid the accident. Now, for John Connolly, that run was lost as soon as he got over the centre line. That's an instant disqualification. That hands the event win back across to Gary Phillips. And you can see on the onboard, he was really trying to fight it. Look at the onboard. The body just comes apart. John Connolly fighting that car the whole way down the racetrack, and he would be absolutely filthy inside there. Let's go on board with Gary Phillips, and I guarantee you he wouldn't have seen anything except for that big Crossroads funny car coming across into his lane. It looks a lot calmer on board with Gary Phillips, but man, oh man, that's a scary incident, something nobody wants to see. But what a way to finish this Pro Alcohol Championship.
Yeah, I'm fine. John's okay, I guess. There's no, I don't think he got hurt or whatever, but yeah, I got some damage to mine from, the Dodgem cars or whatever it was. But yeah, I mean, I didn't hit I hit the wall, but I was pushed into the wall. So I mean, it's long, but both of us are okay. I mean, I didn't get any jarred neck or anything, and so I think it's still around 560 or something like that, but only 200 mile an hour. So yeah, it was just, not the way you sort of want to end it, but the results were okay. A couple of Christmas trees, record, yeah. So yeah, it's all right. It's all good. But no, it was absolutely fantastic for Lucas Oil Products. I mean, the car ran really good, set the speed record, and we were going to have a go in the final there, and I guess it didn't happen. And to win the championship, win the event, don't get much better than that.
It doesn't take an expert to know that there is no coming back for that body on John Connolly's funny car. Look at the devastation caused by a tyre exploding at over 350 kilometres per hour. It is just utter devastation. But he finished second in the championship in the end. Gary Phillips takes home his 19th national title. Steve Reed in third, Robert Ambrosi in fourth, and Wayne Price rounding out a sensational season for him in fifth. Peter Zello in sixth with his first event win this season. Aaron Deary, the West Aussie, in seventh, and Scott McLean rounding out the top 8. Well, what a way to finish this 400 Thunder Championship for Pro Alcohol. For all the information regarding upcoming events and everything regarding the series, visit the website 400thunder.com.au. In the meantime, Gary Phillips, well, he's still celebrating his 19th national title. 2 Christmas trees. It's not been a bad weekend for him, and we will see him back next season. And hopefully we see you back as well on the 400 Thunder Series.